Since 1968.
Berwyn Heights moved to Berwyn Heights in 1972.
Over 30 years, probably around 33 years at least.
I moved here in June of 2000, so almost 20 years.
We moved here in 1965.
Winston Churchill High School in Potomac, Maryland.
I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. At that time it was called the Catholic High School. It's since been renamed Bishop McDevitt.
Lincoln High School in Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
English High School in Boston, Massachusetts. It's the oldest high school in the country.
I went to Greenfield High School, and it's located in Greenfield, Wisconsin.
1954.
1949.
Graduated in 1957.
1975.
1977. That's a good question. I came at the end of the baby boom. So when we were going through high school, we were literally pushing out the walls. Our class was so large, they could not fit us all in high school at the same time. So as a freshman, I started class, I wanted to say around 9 a.m. We shared cafeteria, and then they finished early and were out by mid-afternoon, and we finished a little later. By the time I was a sophomore, we couldn't even do that. They had to totally split us. So we had juniors and seniors from 7 to 12, and then the freshmen and sophomores came in from 12 to 5. So I remember having a swim class, in my last class of the day, and I would go outside and my hair would freeze when I got on the bus because it was so late and so cold. The residents of Greenfield realized at that point they needed to put more money into the school system, and so by junior year they had built on an addition, and we were able to put our high school back together again.
I really don't recall specifics and things. I should tell you that I came out of a very small grade school, and when you got to the high school, the cliques were already formed, and the result was I did not get involved in very much at all.
As a teenager, I grew up on a farm, and I took a bus into town to go to high school. So it really, it wasn't like you lived in town and you could walk home from the high school, which a lot of my classmates did. I had to ride a bus, which went about 15 miles to get me home. So I really didn't participate in a lot of extracurricular stuff. I mean, for high school, it was important to me because I wanted to get off the farm. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to have a different life. And it was important then that I get good grades in high school, so I did.
I hardly remember it, but I used to have to commute. I lived in Roxbury, and I had to take elevated. After I took a bus to the elevated then got off the bus and elevated and then walked over to the school.
It was all right. Pretty much I partied a lot. I used to skip school and
Oh, gee, I love science and math, so those were my best subjects. At the time I got to high school, I kind of had come to terms with having to take social studies.
Best subject was mathematics, I think. I've always liked mathematics. As far as the worst subject, I actually took personal typing, and I got a C in it.
I don't know. I was very enamored with astronomy and science, physics, but I didn't do much with it, but I read a lot about it. Bad?
Yeah, that you did.
Not really. I seem to be a good student without trying. I didn't do my homework, but I'd still get B's and A's. And I don't know. just seemed to come to me easy. My favorite subjects were history and science and astronomy. Well, I guess astronomy was probably what the science, biggest part of the science. I wrote a paper when I was 17 years old in my senior year on comparable universes. I said, if we're the third planet from the sun, then all these stars that we got out there probably got their third planet from the sun, might have life on it. And I wrote an interesting paper on that.
I was good at English, and worst was trigonometry.
I don't know that I had a best or a worst. I did like some of the math. As far as grades went, I was probably an average B student.
Not really. Just, I don't know. Girl Scouts, maybe. Girl Scouts. But I had a horse. I rode him on a regular basis in high school.
I tried to play baseball, but I couldn't hit the ball, so I gave it up.
I can remember trying out for the baseball team. I think I survived the first cut, but I did not make it through the second.
I was on the track and field team sophomore year. I think that was the only one that I had time for. Band music took most everything of the time that I had. I'm trying to think of what else we did. The reason I chose the instrument I did is because I wanted to be the first in the parade, so the trombones always go first, so they don't hit anybody when they're using their slides. That's what I picked.
I participated in dramatic. I was in a play, actually. But this was in junior high school, before I ever got to high school. Mm-hmm. But we had to be transported into junior high school as well. And I did do that. When I got to high school, I just never pursued.
You know, that's a good question. Things like being afraid to use the restroom during the day. And I thought, that's crazy. I never experienced that when I was growing up, going to school. But I think just in general, the changes and, becoming an adult that you're going through makes it difficult, I think, no matter what age or era or decade you're in.
I think it's harder now because I see what some of the kids are doing, and it just seems like it's harder because they have all those specialty programs. And
that's difficult to say. Social media, they all post on social media, and we never had anything like that when I was in high school. I mean, no, we didn't.
Right.
Okay. They're very concerned about their image with their colleagues and so forth.
As far as being a student at that time, I don't think it was overly hard if you applied yourself. You followed, I'll say, the rules and regs. It very well could be much harder today. There's just more pressure on you, I think, and more peer pressure, and you have, I don't think we had the drugs and things of that nature that you have today.
Right.
Probably hard to be a student now. I didn't have any problem being a student in high school. Like I say, I never did homework, but yet I'd ace the tests. I'd get 80, 90, sometimes 100 without studying. I think I had a photographic memory back then, but I don't know if I got it anymore.
Did not. Did do some dating, but nothing what you would call serious.
Yes, I did. And she was a Catholic, and I was a Lutheran. And I didn't realize at that age how important that was. But there was no way on God's green earth she was ever going to marry a Lutheran. And my mother would have had conniption fits if I'd have married a Catholic.
Yep, yeah, his name was Paul Orsinger. No, I'm not sure where he is now. Yes, we were going steady.
I did. I have no clue where they are now. We did not keep up after I went to college and he went in a different direction, and that was the end of that. So.
Nah, I sort of played the field, or the field played me. I don't know which.
I remember the Korean War.
I got out of high school and the Korean War was over.
Okay.
So, but I remember reading of one of the people that I used to pick beans with when I was a kid wound up dying in the Korean War, charging a machine gun nest, I believe. He got the Congressional Medal of Honor, but posthumously. You remember from those that era, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Had World War II. In fact, I wanted to get in so bad, I graduated high school on the 6th of June, 1949, and the 7th of June, 1949, I was sworn in the Navy.
To ride my horse and party a lot and hang out with my girlfriend that had a horse and hang out with my girlfriend and my boyfriend. Who made up these questions? Mercy, okay.
Hung around with my friends. We would, boy, I don't remember. I mean, stuff like, you know, just going to the mall. We just hitchhiked down to the mall. Which you can't do these days, I guess.
Milking cows. We had a dairy farm. I milked cows twice a day. All of my growing up years, that was part of my life. You did that at 5 o'clock in the morning. We took one family vacation, and my parents were dairy farmers, obviously, and they got the neighbors to come in and milk the cows, and we actually went away for a weekend. We went to Wausau, Wisconsin. So they got a big observation tower, and we climbed it, and we looked all over. And if you have never grown up on a dairy farm or don't know of it, it's very restrictive life. It's why I wanted out. Really, I couldn't picture myself living like this for the rest of my life. Pretty much what it was during spring break and summer vacation. I was home milking cows twice a day. Oh, we would go to dances. I like dancing. Always have. Movies, a lot of movies. 35 cents. You could go to the movies. I mean, the regular A&W root beer was a nickel. The big one was a dime. You know, you could go out and have a heck of a time for $1.
We used to play cards on a stoop. We used to also repair bicycles and things of that nature in this one fella's basement. He used to then in turn resell them.
Wow.
I used to work in probably what we'd call a tailor house where they manufactured clothes. Friday I would hitchhike to Nantasket Beach, probably about 80 miles, and we'd sleep on the beach all weekend. Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, go home, hitchhike home.
Celebrity crush. Yes. There was Bobby Sherman and there was Donny Osmond because I had a poster with all these David Cassidy was the other one.
No, not that I recall.
Margaret O'Brien, and she was about my age, and I actually dreamed about Margaret O'Brien.
Oh yeah, Debbie Reynolds. When I was 17, she was 17. First movie I ever saw her in, and they sang the song Abba Dabba Honeymoon, and when they sang it, they also danced to it. It was one of the most fabulous dance scenes I had ever seen, and I was always sort of interested in the theater, but never really did anything with it.
Pop music. Barry Manilow is probably my favorite. Still is to this day, yeah.
Well, I was more of the music in the 30s and the 40s. I like slow stuff. Sort of, I guess, Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, Rudy Valley. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I don't know. Probably, about Vaughn Monroe. I like slow music.
I liked what was called, today at least, I guess you call it the big band sound.
Oh, rock and roll. Rock and roll, yes. This was before the Beatles. I mean, the big thing was Elvis Presley and Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, all these people. You know, when the Beatles came, it kind of changed everything. But at that time, that was the dominant music.
Rock and roll and bluegrass, the Roslyn Mountain Boys. They were a local band. No, in the Washington area.
Not so much. No, I mean, everybody wore blue jeans, regardless of what social class you were in. They all came to school in blue jeans.
Two things came to mind. I remember mood rings, and I remember pet rocks. Those were two big things. I don't know what we were thinking. Everybody wanted those when I was growing up. Go figure. I can't explain it.
Mini skirts, a little bit, maybe.
Not fads per se. Blue jeans were popular. At one time, I used to have what they called a ducktail. I lost that one. The military got me.
Well, suede shoes, suits, I guess. long ties with a long jacket. But the suede shoes seemed to be the big thing when I was a kid. Everybody wore them. We didn't wear Levi's or jeans in those days. And it always seemed we always had to have a tie back then. Ties were very important. I don't know why, but they were. Now I never wear one.
Well, then I went on to college, to the University of Wisconsin. I actually had two. I worked at Shakey's Pizza Parlor. I was the weekend pizza crust maker. So I don't know if there was an official title for the job or not. I also worked for the Greenfield Observer, which was a local newspaper. I was the high school reporter.
So you ended up going to the Navy after high school, correct?
Right. Oh, that was fun. I'll never forget the first day. We went up to the office in Boston, wherever they were. I don't exactly remember, but it was somewhere in Washington Street. And we gathered together. We got sworn in after getting a couple of tests. And they gave us an eye test for color perception, which was about 20 people. And I didn't know I was colorblind. And I sort of passed it because I went along with all the other people. And the reason I bring it up is because when I was in the Navy, I got selected to go to Annapolis from the fleet, and then they found out I was colorblind, and they wondered how the hell I got in the Navy. But anyhow, the bus ride from the place to the train station, and then the train station to the train ride to Chicago was a lot of fun. But when we got off the train, we got on a bus, and they drove us to Great Lakes, Illinois. And when we got to Illinois, Great Lakes, Illinois, there was a big fence. It had to be at least 10 feet high, and it had barbed wire on the top. And they had a big chain around the gate. And this guy come out and pulled the chain out, opened the door, and the bus drove in, and they closed the door, and they put... So what the hell? Then they cut off all my hair. But that was fun. I enlisted for 3, but I wound up doing what they call the Truman year. Because of the Korean War, Mr. Truman extended us 1 year, which sort of ticked me off because I was upset that I didn't go to Annapolis. And I said, I got to spend another year.
Went home and to my parents' house, took care of my horse. I don't know. Yeah, I used to work at Sears. Yeah, I worked in the candy department and the linen department. So I missed all the football games because I used to work on the weekends.
After high school, I had a relative that worked for the federal government. The family didn't have much money. College was kind of out of the question. The agencies, various agencies, were recruiting clerical help out of high school. And so I came to Washington as a file clerk for one of the government agencies. The idea was to work daytime and go to night school.
I went to the University of Wisconsin. I couldn't afford to go to Madison, but I went to the local extension center for my freshman year. My mother actually staked me to it on money she had saved because my dad figured I was going to grow up and take over the farm. I had a younger brother, fortunately. She paid my tuition to go to the local extension center, and I got straight A's both semesters, and that got me a scholarship to the university at Madison. And I went there, and then everything else followed from that. Got into some competitive things. I got a scholarship my junior year, I think, from Purina Feeds, you know. I was in agriculture still, and they paid my tuition, and I worked. I worked 20 hours a week all the while I was in college. I worked at the dairy barn, and back they had an experimental goat herd, would you believe? And you know, with cows you use milking machines, but with goats there was no machines. There's just 2 of them hanging down there, you know, and you got to use your hand. And my job was to milk a herd of experimental goats every morning before I went to school.
I don't know, I guess my mother, she was just really good to me. She helped me out.
I would say my elementary school teacher, she had a library card, and my parents were not well read. My dad graduated from the 8th grade. My mother's mother died young, and she had to quit school after 7th grade. I mean, all we had was mostly religious stuff in the house. You could read the Bible or stories about St. Paul or whatever, but there was nothing that would expand your vocabulary, your horizon. And she started to get me books from the library, and she brought me the books. I never got to the library myself. She actually went to the library and selected books for me that she thought would expand my vocabulary, and it did. But one of the books she brought home was The Good Earth by Pearl Buck. It was about a young man growing up in China during the period before World War II. But anyhow, one of his experiences, as all men, young men when they're growing up, was to have his first sexual experience.
Yeah.
And there was a neighborhood prostitute in the, okay, his first sexual experience was with the village prostitute, but I didn't know what a prostitute was, you know. Hell, I'm in 6th grade. So I went to my mother, which was a big mistake, and asked her what a prostitute did. And it went downhill from there, because then she went after my teacher, and she wouldn't let me get any more books from the library.
Probably my mother, as well as my wife. My mother, because looking back, I thought she kept pretty tight rein on me. And the wife, just because we were together for many, many years, and we had a good life, a good married life.
My mom, who used to take me to the library and taught me, you know, that reading was fun and something you could do on a regular basis. My Latin teacher, well, we had a very small class, surprise, surprise, and she was very personable. She would, you know, we were invited to come to her house. She would make meals for us. She traveled quite a lot around the world, so she'd share those stories with us. I think it opened me up to realizing that there was more to the world than just the city of Greenfield, which is all I had been known up to that point. I think, you know, treating us as adults was really important at that point in time.
Gee, that's tough. Probably Aristotle. I read his book, or some of his books. I didn't read all of his books, but in one of his books he wrote a treatise on how to be happy. And in the treatise to be happy, he says you need at least 3 things to be happy. If you don't have those 3 things, you can't be happy. But even if you have those 3 things, there's no guarantee you'll be happy. That sort of fascinated me. But he also had a great outlook on how people should act with one another and government. And so I sort of felt that most people were either unknowingly Aristotelians or Platonists. And Aristotelians are free-thinking, self-sustaining individuals, where Platonists seem to be government-oriented, need help, somebody to look out for them types, but maybe not.
Happiest moment of my life? Oh, I could point to several. I think one was graduating from high school when I got married for 46 years. Sad moment, of course, when the wife died. Another happy moment is when I met my current, I'll say, lady friend. And, you know, life has been good for me.
Well, I'll tell you, I think I have a wonderful wife. I met her by accident at the University of California at Davis. I was a graduate student working on my PhD, and she was an undergraduate student majoring in dramatics. And we just met at a mixer dance. But there was something there, you know, that I had never met this girl before. Then we made a date for the next night, and somehow she assumed I had a car, and I didn't. I didn't. And so I suggested we meet at a neutral position between her dorm and where I was living. But she thought that I was to come and pick her up. And so she was waiting at the dorm, and I was at what I thought was our meeting place. And then she figured it out, and she actually came running with tears in her eyes because she thought she had missed this date. I never had a girl do that before in my life. That anybody got that choked up by missing a date with me. So I'll remember that as long as I live. I mean, I think I've been very fortunate, because I used to pray about this. Who am I going to marry? Because you want somebody that's going to stick with you, and she always has. Always has. We have been all over the country. We've lived in other countries. There's never an objection from her. I mean, she likes to travel. Her dad was in the Army Corps of Engineers, and so I think that's when I look back over my life, that's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Who knows? Probably when I got married, meeting my wife, she let me chase it till I caught her. Well, we were married 53 years and 25 days. Not long enough. If she was still here, we'd be married 65 years, September.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I could say the day I got married was, you know, one of the happiest moments in my life. Graduation, you know, accomplishment, being able to graduate from high school, graduate from veterinary school were both incredibly wonderful times.
Life lessons, you have to accept the ups and downs and good with the bad. You have to just roll with the punches, as I say. But the other side of it is, somebody said somewhere, you never give them more than what you can handle. So I believe that.
I guess for good things to happen, bad things also have to happen. You don't appreciate good things unless bad things have happened. And so I've had some bad things happen. I've had health problems. You're working for your PhD, you have to do a qualifying exam. The first one I did, I flunked. That had never happened before in my life, but I was given a chance to do it again. And man, I was ready the second time, I'll tell you. You've got to let bad things happen because good things are going to follow. If you pursue it. I mean, you got to have the courage to pursue it. If you don't pursue it, nothing happens.
Try not to judge people based on what you think they are going to be like. I try to be open to everybody that I meet. They have my trust, they have my friendship until they decide they don't want it anymore. So I think that's something that I don't see always in other people, and I think that if we were more, more civil towards each other, the world would be a better place.
Oh, that's a tough one, because when I look at astronomy and look at the universe and then the so-called Big Bang Theory, it's just sort of crazy. Life is a big joke, yet we take it too serious. Yet, does it matter or doesn't it matter? Is there a life after death or isn't there? And if there is, what is it like and where do you go? And if there isn't, what's this all about anyways? Why are we here? Makes no sense, but who cares? What annoys me most about their educational system. I think they're not taught right. I think they're taught probably things that are not true. They're not taught anything about the Constitution or American history. I'm sure that they don't have the slightest idea who any of the vice presidents were. It's like, to keep me from getting senile, every night before I go to bed, I say all the vice presidents of the United States. There's 48 of them, and there's 45 presidents. Did you know that? Do you know who the first vice president was?
Who was it?
The second president. Do you know who the second president was? John Adams. That's what I'm saying. Now, you go to school. Don't they teach you that stuff?
They teach us.
Do you know who Aaron Burr was? He was the third vice president. But he also was a murderer. He killed Alexander Hamilton. They don't teach you anything.
Millennials today, I think they seem to be obsessed, generally speaking, seem to be obsessed with themselves. I think in many, many cases they're inconsiderate. I think I just have to realize and accept that's just the way things are today.
And they were able to figure out what these Egyptian writings meant. And some of it was criticism of young people, that they weren't respectful enough of their elders and stuff like that. So this is not anything. I mean, this has been going on since the time of the ancient Egyptians. I have no objection. My God, I was a college professor for 35 years. I have no objection to young people putting out new ideas, but they have to understand that sometimes these don't fly.
Right.
What are you going to do with these answers?
We will be using them in a video for
Okay.
seniors.
Oh, well.
We'll be editing, so.
All right.
Cigarettes.
Yeah, cigarette. Well, we're not going to say what else.
See? That's good for the video.
I don't even know what they are, to tell you the truth. Just
They vary
young
a whole
people,
lot.
millennials,
millennials.
like the generation,
Not the 30-year-old, the 20-year-olds?
like the 30.
30-year-olds? I don't know what annoys me about them. I can't answer that question. Skip that question.
Okay. All right, that's pretty much it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for doing this.
I did the best I could.
Yeah, sorry about the interruption.
But I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's okay.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Say that one.
What annoys you the most about millennials? Up until this day, what's the happiest moment? Like, what gets you the most happy? We're all done.
Cool.
All right. This is the part where you say, well, on behalf of Berwyn Heights Police Department, thank you for your time.
Okay.
Okay.
Just tell me and we'll go ahead and skip those.
I will. I'll tell you. I don't remember or whatever.